Hello and welcome to the Burgon Fitness Podcast. The podcast aim is to educate, motivate and entertain you. Today's podcast is episode 7 and is how to deal with setbacks. So in today's podcast, I speak about how to deal with setbacks in relation to myself. So how I've dealt with my setback of an injury. If you haven't heard about what injury I had, then I don't know why you've been hiding because it's all I've been going on now. Now I've spoken about it quite a lot. So I tore my ACL, sprained my MCL and tore my meniscus in a ski accident. And I did that back in March the 9th. So since then I've been rehabbing and trying to overcome that injury, and that there's been many setbacks along the way, so I can speak on behalf of myself. As you listen to the podcast, what I would encourage you to do is to think about your own circumstances at the moment, or past circumstances where you've had setbacks and you've tried to overcome them, and what you did and whether it was successful or not, or in future how you might deal with setbacks. Give the podcast a listen, reflect on it, apply it to your own life, and I hope you enjoy this one. I also hope you appreciate the flower that I have included in the visual today. It's my granddad's flower. I think it's fake actually. Anyway, that's irrelevant information. Let's pretend it's real. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but I hope you appreciate the flower. Maybe it adds something, maybe it doesn't. So the last podcast I did was an emotional insight into my injury, and I posted that on the 29th of March. And within that, I spoke of how 3 to 4 months would be the best case scenario for my injury. And at that point, I thought that was probably what the case was going to be. And I was hopeful that was the case. But now we're 6.5 months in, and I have had a few setbacks along the way. So I think who better to talk about setbacks than for myself while it's still fresh as well. I can give you some accounts of recent situations that I've been in and circumstances that I've had that have led me to setbacks and how I've dealt with them. Just to provide the background. So my advice point number one is forward thinking. So forward thinking is so important when it comes to dealing with setbacks. So at the time when I injured my knee, it was about, right, okay, this is the situation. Let's look forward to a few months' time when everything's okay. And I am able to compete again. So because I had to lose out on competitions as a result of the injury. So I wanted to forward think to a time when I could do competitions and see the value and the importance in doing my physio exercises, so that I could come back stronger. And a quote that played a big part in this is every setback is a setup for a comeback. So by that, it's sort of getting in your head that, you've got a setback here, but this is going to propel you forwards in the future, so that when I have that competition, of which I'm due to have in October, hopefully, I have a load of backing in terms of I've been through this difficult situation with my injury, and I can really use that to propel me in the competition and use it as determination. So it's a setup for the comeback, and the comeback in my eyes is that competition in October, and it always has been. My first advice to you is to think ahead, so forward thinking. Don't think about how it feels now as well. Think about how it's going to feel when you commit to your physio, or whatever that setback might be. Maybe you've had a little bit of a setback at work where you didn't quite get the promotion you thought you were going to get. Instead of thinking, oh, well, this is the end of the world sort of thing, think, do you know what? This has happened, but let's forward think and think ahead and think where I might be in a few months' time, a few years' time. And that brings me to my second point, which is solution focused. So if you're solution focused, this is how I like to try and live my life. It's quite a big claim. Sometimes problems arise where you can't provide solutions. And I try not to, I just knocked my phone on the floor. I try not to get bogged down with this too much, because if there's a problem that can't be solved, what can you do about it? Nothing. But if you have a problem and there is a solution, then focus on that solution. I think a lot of the time people, when they have setbacks or they have injuries, is they feel a bit victimized, and I can completely relate to that. In fact, I'll tell you about a time when I felt the lowest that I ever had during my recovery, and it was, what date was it? It was the 28th of May, I think, because it was a Champions League final. I'll tell you why I remember that in a second. But on the 28th of May, it was a weekend when I went back home to my hometown, Oakham. And I thought going there, because I felt so low the days leading up to that. And I felt going home to Oakham, my hometown, with my mum, dad, sister was there as well. I thought that was going to make me feel so much better. But unfortunately it didn't. I was just so fed up. At that point, my training wasn't going to go in how I wanted to. It had been a few months by May, so it had been like, over 2 months, and I still didn't feel like I was getting any closer to recovery. I didn't really feel like I had much purpose, and sometimes I'd wake up and I'd be like, right, great, another day just to tick off of recovery. You know, I didn't really feel like I was getting anywhere with things, and I just felt so low. And I remember after dinner, I went upstairs and I just literally lay on my bed and just cried. And because my twin is my twin and she knows when I'm upset, she came upstairs and she obviously saw me crying, and my mum was there, and they were like, you know, what's wrong? And I was like, I just feel so low. Like, I just feel like I can't be happy. And it's sad. Like, I'm not saying like I was depressed or anything like that. But I was just really in such a lull, and I just felt so fed up. And so, you know, it's okay to feel a bit victimized, but I try not to feel victimized too much, because otherwise you just get a bit, I don't know, you're not really getting anywhere with that. Instead of thinking, oh, poor me, I'm injured, which, again, I did do at times, but for the most part, I was trying to think, do you know what, this is a situation. The solution is to commit to physio, to read books on psychology so I can level up on the psychology side of things, and also to focus on my dissertation for my thesis and my master's degree. So there's some positives in there as well, that like I can put more time onto that because I'm not training as much. But yeah, be more solution focused would be my second point. I just want to point out that in that last little bit I was talking about, when I was saying about how I felt really low, and then I said don't victimize, like don't feel the victim too much. I wasn't talking about the feeling low part. I was talking about the poor me, I'm injured part, just so that nothing is confused about me saying that, because I think if someone feels low, I'm not just saying you're victimizing. Yeah, just to clear that up. But also another thing, how I remembered the date was, it was, you know, I felt so low, and then I was just like, oh, it's a Champions League final, and I was just like, I feel like my mum might listen to this, and if she does, it kind of might be a little bit of a problem. But years ago, just to set the scene, I used to go on Bet365 and play bingo with a friend from uni, and he had like loads of money, insane. And I forgot that I didn't have that much money. So I didn't put a lot on. Like, I must have put like maybe 30, 40 quid on or something like that. But my mum used to read the post of mine as it came in. So she read that I'd been like spending money on Bet365. So she told me that she'd never give me any money again if I betted. So I didn't bet at all for like years. And then obviously I was like just lying down in bed, and I was feeling like quite fed up. And I was like, oh, at least the Champions League final's on later. And I was like, do you know what? Maybe I'm like meant to feel this low, so that I put a bet on. And I know that's like not the right kind of mindset to go through betting, and that can lead to gambling addictions. But I put a bet on the Champions League final, and I won a load of money. Well, not a load of money, like 80 quid, but I was buzzing. But yeah, that's how I remember the date. Just a little snippet of info there that you didn't ask for. Oh, Mum, by the way, I haven't done any betting since. I like deleted the app, so I've not betted since. So please don't tell me off. I've bought a few scratch cards, but that's not the same thing. My next point is talk to people. So whether that be family, friends, someone who's completely separate from everything, and maybe it's a work colleague that you feel like you could talk to and open up to. Because when you're going through an injury and a setback, living in your own head without talking through things and speaking to people can be one of the most negative things that you can do, because you're only basing it on your perception. So your perception of how your event is, like sometimes, so for example, you know that lull that I said that I got into, and I went up to my room and I was crying, that was me not talking to people soon enough. Like I should have spoken to people sooner than that, but I didn't. And it got to the point where it just boiled up more and more. And as I said, like I left from dinner and I went upstairs and just lay in bed and cried. And I was sat at dinner and I was just trying to put on a brave face and just chat like normal. But deep down, I was like really just wanted to cry. And, you know, it's okay to cry, first of all. But secondly, as I said, I just didn't tell them soon enough. And if you don't speak to people about it, you might not get a positive spin on your setback, because all you're allowing yourself to believe is what is in your head, which isn't always a good thing, particularly if, again, like I say, you're in a lull. So yeah, talk to people, try and get their perspective. They're likely to give you a positive outlook on things. Of course, negativity will creep in, but it's useful that every little bit of positivity that you can get during a time of setbacks is really important and really key to your recovery, rehab from the setback. So yeah, talk to people. Sorry, I think the quality of the camera just went for some reason. So I'm hoping it's back to normal now, or that it changes when I edit it all. But anyway, sorry if it's blurred and it's annoying. So my next point is focus on what you can do. So a lot of the time, and I've come across it with clients as well, people get injured, for example, if we're talking about setbacks in terms of injuries, and they'll just focus on the fact that they've been injured and they can't come to the gym. But quite often they can. For example, I broke my hand or my finger a few years ago, and I just trained legs for a while. I couldn't, and I just did front squats holding the bar like that rather than like that. I've had clients who have had injuries to all sorts of areas of the body, and they've always still managed to maintain coming into the gym. So yeah, focus on what you can do, because there's often things that you can do. Focus on other things. So for example, if we're talking about injuries again, and we're talking about things separate from the gym, I tried to get into a new hobby of photography, so taking photos of things. Did a bit of Googling. I already had a GoPro anyway. Annoyingly, that hobby was short-lived after I went to Portugal, and I had like a bit of a flap on the side of the camera that had come off, and I'd forgotten that it had come off. So my camera's actually waterproof, apart from the part of it that had come off, because it was no longer waterproof because of the thing that had come off. And my dad said, "Oh, Hannah, there's some fish in the sea." And I was like, "Oh, brilliant." Grabbed my camera to get some underwater footage of the fish, started recording and stuff, went onto my camera later on in the day to try and see the insane footage that I had caught and captured, but unfortunately my camera was broken, and I was really upset about it. But anyway, I've gone off topic now. But yeah, focus on what you can do. So try and get into a new hobby. Maybe there's something you've put off doing for a long time you've never had the time for. Try and get into that and see if you can just fill your time with other things and put your energy into other things other than the thing that is causing you a setback. Why is my camera messing up? I'm sorry if it was blurry again. I'm trying to figure out what it is, but I can't really figure out what it is. Sorry. So my final point in regards to dealing with setbacks is imagery. So using imagery during your recovery process. So for example, when I first started running, so the first bit of running was like 3x1K with 2-minute walks in between. And I was so fed up with the fact that I only had 3x1K, and I wanted to do more, but I couldn't. And then my knee was hurting a little bit, and it was annoying me. But then in the back of my head, I was like, no, but one day I'm going to do a park run again. Or one day I'm going to compete and I'll be running fine, as well as amongst loads of other things. So using imagery in the sense of kind of links to the forward thinking that I was talking about earlier, but using in your mind's eye, seeing you recovered from that setback. So that's really powerful thing for you to do. Also, when I'm actually doing my training sessions, sometimes I do think about the struggles that I went through. So like, for example, thinking about being laid in a hospital bed after surgery and feeling really knackered for the days after, but thinking about how strong I was to go back to work, and PT clients just a few days after helped me to use struggles to help propel me in training sessions. So stuff like that. So using imagery within your sessions of your accident or your recovery that's going to help you in a positive way, just adds that determination and that motivation for you to push yourself even more during your training than how you might have otherwise done so without having had the setback. So using your setback to your advantage. I'm really sorry about if the quality of the camera's not very good. It's annoying me, but I'm gonna have to just buy a better camera, because this is just not doing the job. But I apologise. Future podcasts are going to be better. So just to summarise in terms of dealing with setbacks, so we had the importance of forward thinking, solution-focused attitude towards your setback, talking to people, focus on what you can do, and finally, imagery. So all those different things to help you overcome setbacks of your own. And remember, as I said earlier, every setback is basically a comeback waiting to happen. I've changed the quote a little bit there, I think. But essentially what we're saying there is that this setback has happened, but it could be something to lead to the greater comeback. But all that depends on how you deal with the setback at this moment, and using the tips that I've spoken to you about during this podcast will hopefully help you with achieving that. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the podcast so far. I just want to speak to you about what is to come with podcasts. So season 2 is going to be all about behavioural change. So that's what my dissertation was on for my master's degree. And my dissertation specifically was on using behavioural change theory to understand people's barriers and their facilitators towards adhering to nutritional guidance. So I looked at an overweight and obese population and sort of saw or investigated what helped and hindered them to adhere to action points that I'd given them for their nutrition. So this podcast series is going to be based on that. So it'll be introducing behavioural change, elements of it, different theories behind that, and then it'll go into the different themes and stuff and the findings that I found within my research. So it'll be valuable for not only people interested in how to change their behaviour in terms of nutrition, but also any behaviour whatsoever, because I'm going to be talking about different behavioural change theories. So I think as a series and as a topic, it's going to be really useful for loads of people to listen to and understand and input into their own lives and their own behaviours that they want to change. So I'm excited to be talking about that soon. So yeah, stay tuned because that podcast series will be coming soon. But thank you for watching this one. And again, I'm sorry if there was any buffering or problems with the video quality. I'm going to work on that and try and improve that for the next one. But this is the first video podcast that I've done. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know how you found it. And again, thank you for watching.